Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share an update on my experience with the Sony A6400. Now at $899 US, I can say without hesitation, this is the best camera money can buy at its price point. Yes, I would have liked to have seen more in terms of what this camera had to offer in replacing its predecessor, the A6300, but all of that aside, for $900 US, again, that's only for the body, not the kit lens here. That'll set you back a total of $1,300, or you can go with the pancake kit, which is $1,000. You are getting the best mirrorless aps-c class camera on the market. Now, in terms of improvements, it has the same 425 points of phase detection, but the autofocus system now is in a different world, and that's all because of really software. This is essentially a camera that's all about the firmware and not necessarily the hardware, because Sony already had great hardware. It was the software and actual intelligence of the autofocus system that needed tweaking. Now, we do have a new display that can actually come all the way around in order to give you a vlog style setting. However, I don't recommend this to anyone looking to vlog, and that's simply because there's no in-body image stabilization, no IBIS like you'd find with the older and more expensive A6500. And I do anticipate that Sony is going to give us an updated model, which means something more expensive is coming that likely will have this screen fully able to come around. I can't guarantee that. I don't work for Sony, nor do I have any inside information. And it'll also include in-body image stabilization, because unless you want this thing to live on a gimbal, this is a setback. You will be relying on your lenses for stabilization. And quite frankly, for vlogging, that's just a no-go. I do not think this is a good vlogging camera. But that aside, I do think, again, it is one of the best cameras that money can buy, and that's because the firmware update that this has received, because that's what I largely see this as when compared to the A6300 or even the A6500, besides the screen folding out, and I'll talk about other differences, the real-time tracking that the autofocus system accomplishes, whether we're talking about subject, eye, and even soon animal eye focus, is where this camera sets itself apart. So, foldable screen, nice touch, but when it comes to vlogging, also keep in mind that the LCD screen is going to be slightly obscured by the EVF. I don't have the eye cup on there now, but if it was, it would be blocking it even more. And if you actually intend to use the hot shoe, forget about it. This screen is gone with the wind. Also, when you're shooting stills, when the screen is in this position, it'll automatically go into a selfie still mode where it'll give you a countdown once you hit the release. Not a new Sony feature, something that's been standard on the RX100 line since they introduced the flip around screen. Kind of a no-brainer for Sony to bring to the table. You do have to be careful about how you bring the screen back down. If you don't do exactly what I just did, you will end up clipping the EVF. All of that aside, I still think that the autofocus system is what this camera is all about. And I think Sony pitching it as a vlogging camera, I think is really a mistake. In terms of other things, we do have a touchscreen now that is fairly competent. I'm going to go ahead and power the camera on. We also have an improved buffer, which is definitely better. When I say improved, I mean when you compare it to the A6300. So you can see the point of focus is fairly competent in tracking. I'm trying to give you the best. I'll just put it on body. Fairly competent in keeping up with my finger. And then when I keep talking about this continuous autofocus, that it's now real-time tracking, let's see if I can make it happen here. I should be able to. Trying. It actually will lock. There you go. And you can see it's following my hand. So this is the idiot proofing I'm talking about, that Sony in the past had all the hardware to handle this, but they didn't necessarily have the brains. And that's what we have now here in the A6400, and that is what really sets the 6400 apart. Another thing I want to know, that is noteworthy is video. So HLG, we now have that, something that we could have had earlier, but Sony has brought it. It's another thing that I think, obviously with a firmware update, could be addressed in previous gen models, but now we've got it here. Look, we also have HLG in things in cybershot cameras like the RX100 Mark VI. So no shock that now we find it here. And the color science has changed. You're going to see that for the most part. This is going to match the full framed siblings of this camera, like the A7 Mark III, the A7R Mark III, the A9. Those are very good things because if you want a compact camera for B-roll footage, you've got it in something like the A6400. The EVF has also been improved in that it does now have a higher refresh rate. Battery life, not really an improvement of, I would say, of a real tangible form. And I say that because I've heard people say 10, 20%. In my experience so far, it's roughly the same. But when it comes to recording video, no cap on video recording anymore, which is a great improvement. Also, another thing that is noteworthy, overheating. Now, I do live in a warm climate. I have not had any overheating problems at all. So that is noteworthy. Although I have seen people report overheating issues, but that's when they're exceeding well over an hour of video footage, and again, in warm climates. I would imagine that the colder the weather, the longer this thing's going to run, and you'll really end up only having to deal with the capacity of your SD card, since even though we're still working with W series batteries, which are kind of trash at this point, I mean, a little over 300 stills, maybe an hour plus of video on a single charge, we should have a new battery type. And that's one of the things that I really was hoping to see here, but maybe that's reserved for the more expensive replacement to the A6500, which might be the perfect vlogging camera. On the left side of the body, you have access to the only terminals on board, which are the micro USB, aka multi-port, as well as HDMI out, and of course a microphone jack. No headphone jack. Yet another reason that I see this as being a little bit of a gray space camera that I feel is really better off being targeted at families. Like I said, whether it's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, this is perfect. It's like the idiot-proof interchangeable lens camera because it's not going to break the bank. It's going to give you incredible autofocus tracking and capability. You're not going to have to jump into the settings in order to basically rearrange the autofocus settings in general for different environments, and that's what makes this even more versatile. One of the things that I always loved about Sony, since they really started to make a hard push in DI, is that their cameras were always very smart and really made it so that both pros and amateurs alike could excel. And that's what the A6400, in my opinion, really represents. So it's a great camera, but again, the real upgrade that we're getting here is in the software. It's that real-time autofocus tracking where you have subject, eye, everything in one. You saw the way it was following my hand. It's not perfect, but this is just the beginning. So imagine this making its way into cameras that do have new hardware and not the same sensor that we're working with as the A6300. Other things in terms of the menu, I just wanted to let all of you know. I mentioned the interval mode, but other things I wanted to talk about. Let's see here. You can see right there the self-portrait timer. We also have in the S&Q settings now, we do have true 120 frames per second at 1080p. Of course, the 4K Super 35 is solid. However, rolling shutter, that wobble, welcome to Jello Town. Nothing has really changed. That's another reason I don't see this as an amazing vlogging option. So something noteworthy, something I want to make you aware of in advance. Other things you will see here, steady shot, I have been working with that on. I'm looking for the custom keys. So you do now have the ability to go far beyond what you traditionally did with customizing your interface. But if you're looking for a new menu system, that simply is not going to be here. But this may be a preview of moving in that direction. So that's definitely a good thing. So again, to recap, this is just my update, but still, as you may have noticed, very positive update on this camera. Yes, it is really more of a software update to the A6300 than the A60 than I would have liked to have seen in a brand new model. We're working with what seems to be the same sensor, much of the same internals, but the autofocus system has been redefined. The LCD screen, the touchscreen, has been introduced, also redefined for the most part. You also have that added buffer capability, which is twice that of what we have in the A6300. I believe we're jumping from, I think we could take like up to 50 RAW, 100 JPEG now. You know, you can still double that with the old A6500. So that just gives you a little taste of what the A6700 or A7000 may have in store for us. And as I mentioned, the HLG profile, having that there, it just needed to be there to begin with. Now, whether or not that makes it a sale, I don't think it does. What I think does make this camera a sale is its price point and autofocus system. And the fact that the screen comes all the way around, I don't think that's a game changer, but it is something that was long overdue in Sony's lineup of aps-c mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras. So it's nice to have. One last note for those of you wondering, we do have weather sealing here, although I would not put it to the test for those of you that are wondering. So while it is on the spec sheet, please don't go dunk this in water. It's going to die. In fact, make sure no water hits the bottom of this at all. One last thing also, besides the fact that we did not get a new battery type, we also didn't get a faster SD card slot. In other words, type 1 versus type 2, but I'll save that for the full review. So I pretty much have covered everything that I've experienced so far. Amazing autofocus. That is what the A6400 should be known for. This whole vlogger thing, it's a load of crap. If you need to bring a gimbal around, that defeats the whole purpose. And that's what in-body stabilization is going to provide. So in my opinion, you can vlog with this, of course. You can vlog with anything that you want to vlog with, but I could easily make that argument that you could go ahead and vlog with a camera like the RX100 Mark VI. And trust me, I'll be comparing these. But that pretty much rounds out the update for the A6400. I like it a lot, you know, no cap on video recording anymore, bigger buffer, you know, the screen coming all the way around. But again, that real-time tracking autofocus, it just changes the way we capture stills and video, because it is active in video as well. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.